From the Asgard Company Studios in beautiful Wichita Falls, Texas, from the finest mind in the modern fitness industry, the one true voice in the strength and conditioning profession, the most important podcast on the internet. Ladies and gentlemen, starting Strength Radio.
Welcome back to Starting Strength Radio. Thank you again for being here on Friday. We today are talking to our friend Julia Avila, who is an up-and-coming UFC fighter, and we're going to talk to her about all kinds of interesting things today. But first, comments from the haters. Now, these are all kind of going in the same direction today. Most of them don't like the way I look.
What are you talking
about? Yeah, coming from a guy with a beach body. That belly is telling me he knows what he's on about. Why are all powerlifters fat? Is it a requirement? This Ripito guy seems like they're God, and he's fat too. Isn't it wonderful that I don't get paid for the way I look?
Haters.
Julia, you think that's appropriate?
Oh, it's totally fine. I'm just,
Okay.
looking at your form.
Well, if you're fascinated with it, I suppose that. All right, still pushing the 1 gram of body weight. Nonsense, I see, what a joke. Let me guess, Starting Strength is going to start selling a protein powder soon.
You had some hair. We could just use this one mic.
Well, we could. Julia, you're really making me uncomfortable.
What?
You think that's appropriate? All right. Okay, I normally take my workout advice from someone who is in actual physical shape, just saying. We better wrap this up. And that's it for comments from the haters. We're here with Julia Avila. Raging Panda is her. What do you call that little
It's my fight name.
Your fight name is Raging Panda. So what's the deal with pandas?
You
and Nick over here seem to think what is their pandas got something to do with Krav Maga?
No.
That's why I use the panda, because it's the least tactical thing I can think
It's
of.
Right.
the most unassuming villain ever.
Right.
I actually don't. I just really love pandas. There's no deeper meaning or anything. Everyone wants to
They're
associate
just
something.
cool, right?
Just cool as a cucumber. Cool as a panda.
Cool as a panda.
Yeah.
We're talking about the greater panda, not the lesser panda.
No.
Right.
Great. Giant
the greater
panda.
giant panda they call him.
I don't deal with those red pandas.
No,
Jerks.
they're kind of raccoon-looking little creatures.
They're
you know?
jerks. Have you ever seen one in the
No,
zoo?
never have.
You shouldn't. They're horrible. They hide.
Do they?
Most of them.
Well, that's why I haven't seen one in the zoo. They were hiding. Of course, I don't go to zoos much. Anyway.
Okay.
Julie, where are you from?
I was born
Where
in
were you born?
L.A.
Where are you?
Yeah.
Because you have a little accent.
I ate a lot of tacos in L.A.
Where did that come from?
Letterkenny? No, sorry.
Are your parents from out of the country?
My parents are both from Messias. I believe so. They're both immigrants from Mexico, so I'm first generation Mexican
So
American.
you've got a tiny little bit of an accent going on. It's lovely.
You're the first person to say that. Thank you.
Really?
Yeah.
That it's lovely, or that you have an accent?
That you notice it. My
Yeah,
cousins
I can hear
are
a
like,
little tiny bit.
Julie, why don't you talk like us? I'm like, because I was born in L.A.
Right. Everybody in L.A. talks like they're from California. I guess.
Yeah. So Californian accent, I suppose. So I play sports. It's fun. It's
sure.
something that makes sense to me. My career is a geologist.
Right.
That's
and we're
what I
going to
do.
talk about that later as well. You and I are trained in the same field. So
Right. And so that's what I do. That's my profession. My
Right.
passion is to beat the fuck out of people.
Right.
And I ended up being pretty good at it.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
you are.
it's my side hustle.
So how long have you been fighting?
Off and on since 2012, so 7 years.
Really? But 7 years total experience in
Off and on. I took about a 3 to 4
what
year
gets
break.
called the martial arts, so
Yeah.
to speak.
I took about a 3 to 4 year break.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're total. You didn't start when you were 5, then.
no,
Right.
no, I didn't
What
start.
sports did you do before you got into this?
I started in high school, really, and I only did school sports and anything school sponsored. My parents, I had no financial backing or support from family, so I still didn't even learn any actual of the rule sets of any of the sports that I varsity'd in until
So
afterwards.
what did you play varsity sports in?
Volleyball, soccer, track and field,
Right.
and
what was your track and field background?
shot and weight,
Right.
or shot and discus. I'm sorry.
So you were a thrower but not a sprinter.
No. I tried triple jump because
Right.
why not? And I did shot put and weight for Notre Dame in
Really?
college. Yeah.
Really? Scholarship?
Partial. It was academic. So academic anywhere. Gates Millennium. Yay.
So your geology degree is from Notre Dame?
No. I left Notre Dame and I finished my collegiate career at UC Santa Cruz. Go Slugs.
Banana slugs.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you enjoy living in Santa Cruz?
It was
We
wonderful.
were talking about zoos earlier. I mean, that place is so fucking weird.
It was crazy.
Yes.
I was focused mostly on my education and work, so I didn't get to go out much.
Right.
Yeah, I worked for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, so I played with fish. I worked as a fish hatchery manager, so
Oh, really?
that's what I did. Yeah,
How long were you out there?
3 years. So I did graduate on time despite switching universities and everything. And there is where I started to bring it all back. I started running cardio kickboxing classes and like Zumba and body pump. I was a sucker for classes.
Right.
And after college, I went home, started working on a rig, and I was talking to one of my buddies on the rig, and I go, well, I have this experience, and they're like, why don't you see if you can take a punch? Like, you can throw one, obviously. I was like, all right. So I walked into a gym, and I tried out MMA. Had a first smoker, like, a month later, and then I had my first fight. My first actual fight was a professional fight.
Really?
I had no idea until they closed the cage. They're like, by the way, it's pro. And and the girl that I beat is now ranked number 5 in the UFC, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
I had no idea it was a pro
You're
fight.
catching up with her, aren't you?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the fighting stuff then. You are, your background, your formal training is in BJJ and Muay Thai,
Yes.
right? And tell us about that.
So I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's ground fighting for layman's terms. It's, the little man's sport, right? It's all about leverage and learning how to position your body. I've been doing that for about the same amount of time. Actually, I started with judo. And so I know how to throw people down. I know how to strangle them while they're down. And that's where the jiu-jitsu comes in. And I do Muay Thai, and I know how to knock people out. So,
Right.
yeah, I've been doing that all. When I went in and started fighting, I just went balls to the wall, all in. So I started everything all at the same time.
Right. So you're taking classes in BJJ and the kicking sports
Yep.
all at the same time.
Yeah. Let me tell you the story real quick. I remember, and this just hit me, when I was a kid, I want to say about 10, 11, I recycled enough cans in California to buy my first punching bag. So I went, it was like, it took all summer, and it was about $50, and I still have it to this day. It's a blue
Really?
Century bag. It's about this big, I think. Yeah. So I guess I've always had an interest in it.
Well, apparently you have.
Yeah.
It just fascinates me that you've got a day job and you're training at the pro level for this sport. What does your day look like? How much sleep do you get?
Not enough. I definitely don't get enough.
Probably not.
I've never really had enough sleep. I've always just been the go person. I've maintained a similar schedule since high school. My mom used to make fun of me. She said I was the one that opened up the school and closed it because I was there for zero period, and actually before zero period too. So I was there around 5:30 and then leaving at 10 o'clock every night because I had training. So now as an adult, I've carried that through. I wake up around 4 o'clock every morning. I wake up at 4:30 every morning.
4:30.
4:30.
Not 4.
No.
Okay.
Because that's too close to the witching hour, and I'm that Catholic. So we just don't do that.
Right.
So 5 a.m. I start lifting, and 3 times a week on the days that I don't. I enjoy running, so I'll just hop on my treadmill and put on a show, do that, or I'll go to yoga. I work out from 5 to 6. I work from 7 to 5, and in between there at lunch I work out another hour. Get home at 5:15. I'm back at the gym at around 6:30 to 9.
Or you have an office job now?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I work in an office, so that's.
And you live in Oklahoma City?
Yes.
Right. So you just commute to the office, and it's not bad since it's Oklahoma City. Oh. So you're working 7 to 5 with an hour lunch. Train at lunch, and then after you get off work,
I'm at home for about 45 minutes, and then we train at the gym, and it's either jiu-jitsu or MMA, which is mostly a striking focus, so it's a Muay Thai class. Yeah, and we don't train lightly. Our school is very very tough. It's not. It's really not good.
It's not a recreational approach to the deal. Right. So, would you care to tell us about your instructors? Who have brought you? Who's the guys that are responsible for this?
Yeah. So the men and women responsible for my successes. I have Seth Norman, who's my head jiu-jitsu and MMA coach. He has a ton of experience, and is just one of those genetic freaks that, he bumps into a barbell and it's just amazing. He and his wife, Jamie
naturally
Meadows.
Strong.
Yes, naturally strong. Well, his wife is this beautiful blonde Barbie doll who's not as strong and not naturally gifted in that sense, in that regard, but she is very technical. So I get a lot from her. My husband, Cody is my
Cody's your strength coach,
and he actually introduced me to starting strength and the starting strength method.
We're happy that he did that. You were at the seminar. When did? It's been a long time.
It's almost a year.
It was the December seminar in 2018.
December?
I believe we were here in Wichita Falls.
It was in Wichita Falls.
Yeah,
probably.
it was.
So
here.
it was December of 18.
It was just after a fight because I was skinny.
What were you weighing at the time?
About
September.
150, 152.
150.
Yeah, 10 pounds
Right.
less.
Well, I don't know that we would call you skinny, Julia.
I'm swole,
But
not small.
you're weighing. What you just told me a minute ago is that you're weighing 161 today.
Yeah.
And you're going to fight at 138.
35.
135. And that just, I'd be real interested to see how you manage to do that. Do they? Does UFC have a 24-hour weigh-in?
Yes.
Well, that's how they do it.
Thank goodness.
That's how
Thank
they
goodness,
do it.
because I
isn't it?
would not be a bantam fighter if that
Well,
were
no,
the case.
and you're not a bantam fighter, and that's kind of dumb, really.
Not for
Not-
Julia.
Not for Julia, it's not.
Makes
No,
sense
but
to me.
I mean, if they were serious about the weight classes, they would handle that differently, wouldn't they? But that's common to powerlifting too. Yeah, it's an interesting approach to the weight class situation, if you ask me.
And yeah. And people, there is a smart way to cut.
Oh yeah, and not die and stuff. But
Right.
that's another topic for
Takes a lot of
discussion. Maybe
discipline.
we'll talk about that. Well, it does. It's dangerous though.
Oh,
It's-
yeah.
it's very dangerous, and it shouldn't be done, but it is, and you've got to play by the rules, and so that's what you're going to do. So I understand. For those of you that are as stupid about this sort of thing as I am, and I'm just the barbell guy. I don't know anything about the history of the UFC, and I don't know that much about MMA, and I don't know a lot really about. I mean, I've watched. Obviously, kind of a minor fan of this sort of thing, but I've watched a lot more boxing than I have UFC. I watched boxing for 50 years, but UFC is new to me. I don't have cable, and I haven't spent a lot of time watching it anywhere except on YouTube. So could you take us through what you know of the history of the sport and how it has apparently overtaken boxing? Would that be reasonable to say that UFC's overtaken boxing, MMA's overtaken boxing?
I don't know that it necessarily has. Boxing has more money. And
Boxing does have
Yeah,
more money. There's
for
no
sure.
doubt about that. But in terms of viewership, I think that MMA has reached a completely different market
yes.
than boxing has.
Yeah.
Boxing is guys my age, and it's always been it's a traditional fan sport for lots and lots of people. But MMA has opened up a completely different audience to hand-to-hand combat, and this all started back in the late '90s with the Gracies.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that how this whole UFC 1, I remember watching UFC 1.
Yeah, they used to pit specialists against
Yes,
one another.
right.
And
And everybody figured out that the karate guys got their asses handed to them, and the taekwondo guys got.
and
They lasted about 10 seconds.
correct me
and
if I'm wrong, but they had no weight classes, correct?
I think
don't
that's
think
true.
they did, yeah.
I don't think they had weight classes.
No time limit.
No rounds.
No rounds and no
Right.
rules,
Yeah.
except for you couldn't kick somebody in the balls or something like that.
You can wear it. Yeah.
And
And
there were a
people-
few things, but it was almost the same level of no rules as sumo, which has just a couple of rules.
Right.
Nothing but the soles of your feet can touch the ground, and no closed hand blows, and that's basically all there is to sumo. So UFC was a very simple approach to this, and if I remember correctly, I think the thing rapidly headed in one direction, and that was toward BJJ and the Gracie's version of that, and boxing.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that how the thing? That's my recollection. What's your take on this?
Yeah, so it has evolved from that. But I think with the progression of mixed martial arts, they've really incorporated the mixed portion of it, and especially in the growth of men's mixed martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from specialists, from the karates, from the jiu-jitsu guys, from
Judo
catch
players
wrestling. Yeah,
and-
judo players. We went from all of that to really encompassing this mixed portion of martial arts.
Where
So-
everybody's got a little bit of all of it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And now we have this beautiful evolution of just carnage. right?
Yes. it's an interesting thing to watch.
Women's MMA hasn't necessarily gotten there yet. So we have people like Ronda Rousey, who's a judo specialist, make it and become a champion. And we have people like Holly Holm, who is a specialist, who has no groundwork, and she became a champion. We have these specialists that are still succeeding. And not until recently have we seen this evolution of the mixed portion of martial arts in women's MMA. And I feel like I am truly a mixed martial artist. So with, the evolution of the UFC and then going out worldwide, like, I think women are slowly catching up to that mixed portion of mixed martial arts.
What would you consider important about the mix? Is if a person is extremely good in their own little specialty, why is that not enough in UFC?
Because it doesn't finish there. So if we have take for instance, and I did mention Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm, we have a ground fighter, essentially a ground fighter, a judoka, with Rousey, and if she can get you to the ground, she can win.
Right.
If she can put her hands on you, she can win.
Right.
But if you have a kickboxing specialist whose, legs are 27 feet long and she can push you away,
right,
and then knock you out with one kick to the throat,
right,
there's no way that you can win. So so if we get this kickboxer to the ground, she can't defend herself.
Right.
So that's where the mixed part comes in.
But if she can knock you out in 11 seconds, then you don't get her to the ground either.
If I know any basic kickboxing defenses, then
that's not going to happen.
Right.
Right. And that's kind of what we saw with Ronda.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we need just a little bit of that's why the mixed portion is so important. And like in my fights, if anyone has a chance, go subscribe YouTube or find me on Instagram. But I have clips of where I've been able to use the cage wall in my benefit, where I'm scraping the girl's face across the cage, or I can use it, I can bounce her off, and when I kick her, I break her nose. I can also use the ground to my advantage. Like if I'm punching someone in the face, I can grind their face down and then attack an arm. Or I can just knock someone out.
Right.
Yeah.
So UFC started, when was the first year of that? 90
something.
6 or something, 5?
Yeah.
Well, it was late 90s, I think.
I was but a wee one.
It was probably 97 or 8. Don't we have I think we have staff for this, don't we? 93 was the first event. 93, so we're coming up on 30 years. Wow. 26 years ago, if I'm doing my arithmetic right. And how old are you?
I was 5 in 93.
Right. So did you ever watch when you were a kid?
No.
Were you even aware of it when you were a kid?
Nope. I was not aware of any real mixed martial arts. I hadn't watched any when I started fighting. Not until the past couple of years that I actually start watching MMA.
Right. When was your first UFC fight?
My first UFC fight was this past July, but my first MMA fight was in 2012.
2012. What are the? I don't guess it would. UFC is the preeminent organization. What are the other organizations that are kind of doing the same thing?
Yeah,
have you had anything to do with them?
There are a couple international ones that are both for men and women. Bellator, LFA, One Championship, FC is FC1, I'm sorry. There's Invicta. Invicta is an all-women's fighting circuit, and I have fought for Invicta twice. Yeah, twice. And they are actually under the same umbrella of the UFC, so they're kind of a feeder. A lot of great women have gone through there. Chris Cyborg, Rose Namajunas, Amanda Nunez, who's the current champion for the featherweight and bantam. So, yeah, a lot of really cool girls that gone through there. Yeah, and there's always smaller local promotions that put on shows.
Right. Where is the kind of the hotbed of all of this stuff? Is it the United States? Are we kind of leading the world in the development of MMA?
Currently, we are, yes. There was overseas in, I want to say, China. There was the ring. It's in a boxing ring, but it's still MMA. Pride.
Japan.
Is it Japan? Okay, I'm sorry.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, Pride. Yeah. So currently, right now, the UFC is really the top tier.
Right.
At
And
least
5-minute rounds are the norm.
3 5-minute rounds, and for championship or headliners, it's 5 5-minute rounds.
Right.
Or unless, submission or not.
What is your record so far?
I am 7-1 as a pro. 8-1. 8-1 as a pro.
Yeah, don't get that wrong.
I don't know. I get hit in the head for fun, so it's all a blur.
The numbers kind of merge.
2-0 as an AMI. Am I 8-1? I'm 8-1.
What's pro versus amateur? What's the
You get paid.
That's it.
Yeah. The only distinction, and you can throw elbows as a pro, but the only difference between a pro and an amateur is that you get paid as a pro.
Right. So it's just a matter of you getting selected to fight another pro.
Yep.
Right. And who makes that decision?
I have a manager that puts my name out there.
Right.
If I can bring in tickets, they'll sign me.
And then the officials in the organization decide who's going to be on the card. Right?
Yes. Yeah, they want to have the most exciting fighters out there. If all I'm going to do is lay on top of someone and not show any blood, it's not that great.
Right. So there's a component of
Marketability.
yeah, in terms of just the entertainment value of the
Yeah.
engagement, right? I wonder if that enters into boxing.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
McGregor,
You think it does?
Mayweather.
Right.
That was all marketing. That was all, names.
I paid for that one. I
Yeah.
paid $100 to watch that.
Yeah, we watched it.
Knowing full well what would happen, it's like you gotta see it. $100 bucks.
We were talking earlier, and you had an event coming up here pretty quick in Singapore that got canceled. What was the situation?
Yeah, so I was supposed to fight next weekend on the 26th.
And we're filming this on Friday, the what is today?
The 18th?
This is the 18th. It is.
So, yeah.
Oh God! Look, Rogan's called again.
Oh, tell him hi.
I wish he'd leave us alone. He just keeps bothering me about wanting me to be on his show, and I've told him. How many times have I told him no?
At least 42.
42, 43
Today.
times. Well, yeah, he's called twice today. Well, anyway, let me turn that over so I don't have to listen. So today's the 18th. We're filming this on the 18th. And you were supposed to be in Singapore next weekend.
Right, yeah, for the
So
UFC
what
fight
happened?
night. My opponent got injured. She broke her kneecap, I believe so, or something along those lines. So, this is unfortunate. It would have been both of our sophomore fights in the UFC, and it would have been a good fight. Hopefully I get to fight her in the future.
Who is the girl?
Carol Rosa from Brazil, and she just got belted. She just got her black belt not too long ago, and she came off a win in the UFC China.
So this was going to be a step up from the last one? Or was it kind of parallel to the last?
It's a lateral move.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happens now?
I wait. I train. I wait. I get stronger. I get better.
So then your manager is out fishing for another one right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The right one. The one that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't have to accept everything that's offered to you, right?
Correct. I
How
don't.
many times have you turned people down?
I have not turned anyone down that I could rationally fight. I've had to turn people down because of medical reasons. I had stitches and they offered me a fight and I couldn't accept it because I wasn't medically cleared. I just came off a broken thumb.
They won't let you fight with stitches?
No.
Or you won't let you fight?
No,
with
no, I don't have medical clearance to
Okay.
fight with
All right.
with.
They don't want
stitches.
you in the ring if you.
Right. And then I had to turn down another one because I had been released from surgery like maybe a month afterwards, and so I still had to let my bone heal.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what are the injuries that you have received here? Mainly superficial stuff. I know you told me last time we talked that you'd broken your hand.
Yeah. So I broke my thumb. I shattered it at the joint here. So I basically punched so hard that my thumb got caught. It was sticking out because the gloves are a little big. So it was sticking out, and I punched her so hard that it compressed and broke down here into 3 different pieces. I got stitches on my eyebrow. I have nice little.
That's going to happen again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's the second
Right.
time actually. The first one
Yeah,
was because
you got a brow ridge that doesn't like being hit. So,
I just got to move my head faster.
Yeah.
And my finger popped out, dislocated and popped out during one of my
I see
fights.
that.
Yeah. I tried to put it back in. I didn't realize that it was my bone was sticking out, so I tried to put it back in. I looked down, and it was during the fight, and I'm like, all right, my bone's out. So I switched stances, and I put my right hand forward.
Right.
And I tried to keep fighting, and the ref was
That's
like,
very.
no.
That's very resourceful.
I wanted to keep fighting.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. You don't feel it during the fight, I'm sure, right?
I was fine. It's a bone. Looked
Right.
like a chicken wing.
Same color. Oh God Almighty. So you train for fights a little bit differently than a lot of people do, and one of the primary reasons we wanted to talk to you is because you're one of the few people in the sport that seems to understand that stronger is better. Now, it is a common problem among sport coaches all over sports that they are not interested in having their athletes train under the bar for, they'll pay lip service to it, but there's most sports, and some are worse than others. Boxing is probably the worst we've ever heard of. Those guys just don't understand that you can get stronger and therefore hit somebody harder if you're stronger if you lift weights. Mm-hmm. It's 1953 apparently, where they're still telling people that it'll slow you down and all this nonsense, all this mythology that's obviously wrong. You know better than that. And one of the comments that we've heard from the people you fought is that, my God, she's strong. We're hearing that from their coaches. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to me that the mindset remains so thoroughly entrenched against a progressive strength training program in the combat sports. I don't understand why it's not obvious that, well, all right, why did they put weight classes into UFC? Because the bigger guys are stronger than the little guys. What does that tell you? What does it tell you when steroids are used in a sport? This is not complicated. Stronger is important. Yet, the mindset, especially in MMA, remains for most of the people that do it, certainly most of the coaches, that we don't need to lift weights. And what the fuck is going on with these people?
It actually wasn't without a little bit of kicking and screaming on my part for me to actually believe it. So it is very difficult because it's so entrenched in our mindset that weight training will make you slower, will make you bigger, will make it harder.
Right.
It doesn't. It actually makes it easier. Cutting, because it is part of the culture still because of the weight classes. Cutting weight is easier when you're more muscle.
Right. Because water
Pulls,
comes out
yeah.
easy. Right.
So it's it took my husband a couple of fights for me to really start believing in it. And we weight train, and that's what we do. We get under the barbell. I've always loved weight training, but because I didn't have to focus on the number on the scale, I did it all the time when I was younger and when I was playing a multitude of sports. But now when I have to focus, when it's an issue, when the number on the scale is an issue, I was a little hesitant at the beginning. Now I'm all about it. I'm fine. I know how to cut weight.
You've been through the process several
I've been
times,
through the process.
and you understand the advantages here.
And I'm the pro. I'm like team captain at our gym. And so the fighters that we do produce, we run their strength training. And they listen, they follow, and they've all had great results. They all follow barbell training. They all do the same cut. We don't use any PEDs. And we're successful.
Right.
We're really successful.
Well, anytime steroids are involved in a sport, this is the same thing as saying strong is important. Steroids are a way of saying, I'd rather just not do my deadlifts.
Oh my God! People are so fucking entitled. It pisses me off so much.
I understand. It's you baseball players are famous for substituting steroids for barbells. If strong is important, why don't you lazy bastards just stop relying solely on your genetics and your steroids and get under the bar?
Because it's hard.
Get under the bar and do the work.
People don't know work ethic.
People don't have a work ethic. A lot of gifted athletes, because of the way the whole thing is set up, have never had to get under the bar and get stronger than they are now, because however strong they are now has been enough. And all of that potential has remained untapped. And it's interesting to me that they would rather just take the stuff than they would put in the work 2 or 3 times a week and add 5 pounds to their sets of 5 squats, their set of 5 deadlifts, add 2.5 pounds to their bench press, their overhead press. I don't understand. What has been said to you about this?
Oh gosh, let's start from the beginning. So in high school, I was offered steroids. They said I could be so much better.
Well, of course.
Yeah, I never took
It's
any.
high school and everybody was.
Never
Right.
took any. I don't know if I'm a naturally gifted athlete.
Have you ever had your vertical jump measured?
Measured, yeah.
What is it? Do you remember?
23? No, it was more than that. 26.
26 or 7. You're a naturally gifted athlete.
But I never knew that growing up.
No,
in
and you
the
wouldn't.
sports that I did.
You wouldn't have known it growing up, except
Because
by
I have
virtue
work
of the
ethic.
fact that everybody wanted you on their team.
I just had a
Right.
work ethic.
Right. The work ethic is important, obviously. The work ethic is important. And you either have a work ethic or you don't.
Right.
Right? This comes from your upbringing. It comes from your genetic, psychological makeup. You either want it real bad or you don't.
Yeah. Your
Right?
desire, your passion for it.
What's your passion? Will you do what's necessary?
Right.
Right? If you've got people telling you that what you need to do is dance around on the floor with 10-pound dumbbells, then that might appeal to a person with a work ethic in the same way that getting under a progressively heavier barbell would appeal to somebody with a work ethic, because it's presented to you as equivalent.
Right.
Most of the people at the professional levels of your sport don't do heavy squats and deadlifts because they've been convinced that they don't need to, or that they shouldn't. Conversely, that they shouldn't.
They're convinced that the 10-pound.
They're convinced that functional training is better
Right.
than it's easier. It is easier, It's a hell of a lot easier than getting under a bar and doing a set of 5 with a weight that you don't know you can do the 5th rep of. Because, see, that is nobody's ever worried about missing the 15th rep of a set of 10-pound dumbbell throws around on the floor.
Right.
But your PR set of 5 squats, the last rep
You don't know.
is just as much here as it is here. Right? If you are taught,
which translates
of course, obviously
for
it does.
MMA, any fight ever.
For any sport.
Yeah.
It translates to performance.
Yes.
Testing yourself, knowing that you don't really ever know what your limits are until you reach them. Never telling yourself, I can't, but instead telling yourself, I must.
Right.
Right. That's one of the things that this distraction that functional training has presented to athletes all over the world has caused. You don't understand that your limitations are not always where you think they are. You've been given permission to not find out whether or not you can do this thing that's so hard you don't know whether you can do it or not. And the only way to find it out is to try.
Right.
In the absence of heavy barbell training, how are you going to learn that? Some people just have big, giant, cantaloupe-sized balls and will try anyway. Right. But here is a way to teach that to people that aren't naturally that way. Yet, we're being taught that it's not necessary and that other things are better. With this in mind, what are the arguments you have heard presented against barbell training? Who's presented them to you? Who else has heard this? Who chose to believe it, and why did you not choose to believe it?
So in the beginning, I did barbell training throughout high school. I did the Bigger, Faster, Stronger. I'm sure you're aware of it. Yeah. And I remember going in there for 0 period. That's when my mom said that I opened up the school. And so I've been in love with the barbell since then, since I was 13 years old. Afterwards, I bought my own bumper set, like after college and everything. Got my own bumper set, and I was doing my own programming. And then when I got into mixed martial arts, I was told, no, you don't want to do that.
Right.
It's going to make you heavy. It's going to make you slow.
Who told you that?
Everyone.
All the athletes, all the coaches?
All the athletes, coaches, all the observers. They told me to run. And so I ran.
Because that's what you do in the ring, right?
Not me specifically, but some people. I chase.
From you.
Well, no, so that's what I did. I've run marathons and ultra marathons. I've done endurance races, and I do them well. But I always kept barbell training, and it was mostly because I enjoy it. I love it. I love the strain, the knowing that I can push that weight, knowing that I can get under the bar. I'm just really good at lifting heavy shit.
Good.
So
good, and that is helpful, isn't it?
I kept it.
When did it occur to you that this whole thing in the ring was not just about the technique, that it was about the amount of force with which you can interact with an opponent?
When men started telling me I have to use muscle against you, which was the very beginning, because I am a strong girl.
Which is a way of saying strong is good.
Yeah.
Right. You're stronger than our other female sparring partners.
Yep. I'm stronger than most of the men sparring partners.
Right.
So I always kept barbell training.
And yet, these guys are still the same people that are telling you not to squat and deadlift.
I've never been one to follow the rules.
Right.
So I just kept doing what I do.
Why can they not see what the hell they're saying and the contradiction? They're making the obvious observation that you're stronger.
You're strong.
But don't do the things
That
that
make
are
you strong.
obviously making you strong, because that's what, cheating?
It wasn't
What the-
important. What's important was how fast my mile was.
Right. You see how frustrated over here on this side of the table I get with this kind of stupid shit?
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me
Well,
that
yeah.
that people don't understand. It's right there. It's right there.
Well-
you have to be able to see it. It's laying right there. And yet, I mean, every piece of evidence points in this direction. Weight classes, right? Steroids, right? The outlier that will actually train and kicks everybody's ass, right? It's all laying right there. But still, these stubborn bastards
Don't
will
do it.
No, because I wonder if it's professional jealousy. They don't know how to teach you how to squat, and so you don't need to learn. What, do you get the feeling that perhaps part of it is that?
They're just not educated in it.
Yeah, people do what they want to do.
People do what they want to
do.
do,
She
and
likes lifting, so she got fucking strong and kicks everybody's ass.
And nobody can learn from it.
yeah,
No, they can't.
And nobody
No,
can
they
learn
can't,
from
because
it.
they're already good. They can't learn.
right.
Yeah, this is why you're
Right.
going to yell and scream about this shit for the rest of your life, and nobody
Right.
will listen.
No, you're right.
No, and
Because the people who are genetically gifted end up being the best in the world. And if the best in the world don't lift weights, why does anybody else need to lift weights? And that's the logic. That's the argument. It's not logic,
right.
but that is the argument. And it's just weird. It's weird. You know, and this is why I've always said that we are narrowcasting.
Yeah, okay.
We're narrowcasting. We are telling everybody that will listen to us that they need to get stronger. But only a few people like you can absorb the logic of this, because this is not because the argument that the greatest football player, the greatest soccer players in the world don't lift weights, so why should anybody else lift weights? That's a very compelling argument. It's cause and effect versus correlation. You have a science background. You understand the problems with that. But lots of people don't. And it's hard to argue against the fact that the champion in everybody's weight class all throughout MMA doesn't do heavy squats and deadlifts. So why, if you want to be champion, would you do something they didn't have to do? And they just don't understand the argument.
Which is fine. I mean, it's fine for me.
It's fine for you.
Yeah, 'cause
and
I'm gonna be at a better
you're gonna
disposition.
you're going to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And because of that lack of analysis. Right? Well, I want to talk about geology.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Because I know this is an aside.
Gotta squeeze it in.
We just lost most everybody on the We're going to talk about geology. Hey, Julia, I still dig it.
Oh, do you?
I graduated in '83, and I still, when I'm driving down the road,
Looking at formations.
I look at road cuts and formations, and
Oh my
you
gosh.
know.
You've been to Vegas, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, you check out the basins there and everything.
Yeah.
I freak out
Yeah.
every time. Every time I'm like, Cody, look around.
I've been all over Wyoming and Montana and all the western United States where there's not a bunch of vegetation cluttering up the geologic sequence, and you can see all this stuff on the side of the road, and it just
Stupid
still
biology.
fascinates me. I don't know. I've enjoyed it since I was young, and I still do. What's your degree? Petroleum geology?
No,
What is-
environmental geology, so
Right.
just general geology.
Right.
Yeah. With an emphasis in sedstrat, so sedimentary and stratigraphy.
Mm-hmm. So, where do you work? What's your day job, and what do you do?
I work at Chesapeake Energy, oil and gas company.
Big independent.
Yes. So I work for them. I am a geological technician. So I work more on the background. So I process the data. I don't interpret the data. I've worked on an oil rig. I've geosteered wells.
Are you in the field ever at your day
Not
job
anymore.
now?
Not anymore. No, I used to be on a rig for 2 years, working 12-hour shifts and being a mud logger,
Catching
well site
samples.
geologist. Yeah, catching samples, catching, cleaning, sniffing rocks. All
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah.
Well, is Chesapeake doing a lot of fracking? What are they more conventional stuff?
No, we're unconventional for sure.
Right.
Yeah. We drill all over the place.
It seems to me as though the role of exploration geology has been diminished recently with the development of radial drilling and
There's no money.
fracking and stuff.
There's no money to explore.
We already know where everything is. If you've got a black shale formation, we don't need exploration geology anymore. We know where the Barnett Shale is, for example. We know the extent of it. It's been mapped for decades.
But there's always pockets, right? Because there's
Yes.
always the structural like anomalies. So, say the Merrimack, right?
Yeah.
That was right in our backyard, and we didn't know about it
Nobody
until a
would-
couple
nobody
years
thought
ago.
about it.
Yeah,
Right.
I can throw a stone and hit that rig,
Right.
and like I mean that just came out of nowhere. Someone's like, oh, let's just dig there. Let's check this out. That's
right.
So there's always these anomalies. We don't know. Like geology is a soft science, right? It's all arm waves and whiskey.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. Compared to engineering, yes, it is.
Yes, comparatively. So, because we don't know Earth's legit history.
Right. There are
We know it's round, though.
There are too many variables. It is a multivariate system. It's like physiology.
Right.
In that there are things we don't know.
Right.
Right.
And
we don't. There are so many variables that we don't even have control over all the ones we know are there.
correct.
Plus the fact that there are pockets
Right.
that haven't been run across yet.
So I think there's still some validity in like true exploration. There's still some out there.
That was the romance, back in
Yeah.
80 years ago. These guys running around
believe in it. I believe
doing
in it.
surface geomorph and looking at formation subsurface based on clues they'd run across on the surface.
Ah.
Doing geology from an airplane. These guys flying around and look at that thing. Oh, that looks like a structure. Let's go down there and look at the ground right
Yeah.
there. Those were the heydays, man.
That romanticized
That's
version
the
of-
romance. That's the romance. Well, enough of that. We're boring people with our
No, it's
our
great.
little bullshit
They
thing we've got.
interviewed. So while I was in Vegas, there was 2
Yeah.
earthquakes.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, out of
Really?
nowhere, right? Oh, boy. I was so happy.
Well, the Basin and Range is an active place.
It was
You know?
a dormant, blind thrust fault, I believe it was.
How dormant?
There hadn't been an earthquake.
Dormant is relative.
Well, yeah. I mean, there
Right.
there hadn't been an earthquake there for like 30 years or something like
Mm-hmm.
that it came from.
Yeah, that's not real dormant.
Yeah, well, within our time.
Right.
Yeah. But it was super cool. And my
Right.
husband ran around going, we're all going to die. And I was like, no, we're fine.
No,
Calm down.
We're not going to die just now. At least we're not in Los Angeles.
Right.
I get nervous out there, man.
I lived through
Oh,
the
God.
Northridge earthquake. A fan fell on me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, at least the freeway didn't fall on you. The overpass
It
didn't
was
fall on you.
like, 92 or something
yeah.
like that?
Oh, that's the one where, oh God, I remember that. That's where
Yeah, I was there.
those poor
I lived
bastards
it.
got collapsed on top of out on the,
Fan.
yeah, ugly situation.
Mm.
Yeah, California makes me nervous. That's one of the reasons I don't like to be there.
Do I make you nervous? I'm Californian, so California
No,
adjacent.
you're just fine because you moved.
Yeah, sure.
You don't live there anymore, so you're just fine. Julia, tell us what it's like coming back to work in the office after you've just gotten your brains beaten out over the weekend. What Do they allow you like a day off, or what do you? How well do they understand what you do, and are they accommodating? And so there's that aspect of it. But how do you focus on what the hell you're supposed to be doing when you've just gotten through with a fight?
My coworkers and my company is completely understanding of my passion, which is fighting, and I only take on what I can responsibly handle. So until that becomes an issue, I will continue to be both a geologist and a fighter. So that being said, coming back after a fight, I usually tend to be okay. If I have an injury, I work around it because that's what you do. You just adapt. And if there was one time I did have a concussion, so for about a week I was like, who am I? I know I should. And my coworkers.
Ibuprofen doesn't help with that.
My coworkers were completely okay with it, and they helped me out. And there were things that I was able to do throughout that time while I recovered. But, cut week tends to be a little difficult. I'm very angry and hungry and thirsty. And I once threw a water bottle on the ground because I was angry. I just tend to be very
well, at least they
honest.
didn't fire you for that.
Oh, no. It's all around my friends. I know how to take care of myself. I know how to conduct myself in certain situations. Right. I read the audience, and when I'm allowed to, I act out because I need to let it out. After a fight, if I have a bruise or stitches, people know that it's from fighting, and they're okay with it. And they ask how the other girl is.
What does she look like, Julie?
Yeah, they're like, oh, you look this bad? Ooh. And actually, after this last fight, I went and I did one of the classes that's offered at the gym that's on campus. And I was outrunning everyone. And they're like, hey, you guys need to catch up. This one just had a fight. Go catch her. So it's fun. Everyone's super supportive, and I have a lot of my coworkers go to my events, and there was one time, there's video of it where it was a 5-round fight. It was a championship fight, and it was against Nico Montano, and someone goes, "Go Chesapeake!" And I start laughing, my eyes swollen shut, and I just start laughing. I'm like, blood everywhere.
Chesapeake.
So, yeah.
Oh God.
It's great, it's a great work-life balance, and I get it all the time, like, but you're so pretty. Why do you want to fight?
Yeah.
Like, I never would have expected you to be a fighter. Huh?
Sometimes
do I need to be ugly? Is that a requirement?
Do I need to do what you expect me to do?
Yeah. Haven't done it yet.
Maybe not.
Yeah. Not going to start listening now.
Julia, thank you for being with us today. We wish you the best of luck, and although I don't think you need it, I think you'll take care of that yourself.
Luck's for the weak.
In fact. Thank you for joining us today on Starting Strength Radio. We'll see you next time.